Can I be heard? Hello, hello. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm Marwan.
Hello, Omar.
How are you?
Hey, very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well.
I'm sorry, I was at another meeting, so I'm just flopping over.
No, thanks for coming. We really appreciate your time. There's no way it's a real background, is it?
Yep. No worry about it. It's right there. All turned off now. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Yep, totally.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and if anything changes, I have a backup system.
Okay,
So,
awesome.
okay.
We're gonna start in 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
We'll open it up. Maybe we'll wait like a minute, but
Sure.
you know, people will filter in, and that's just as what it is, and it'll be recorded
Okay.
as well, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me double check one thing here. Oh, there they are. I was given the boards, auto boards yesterday for 3 days. I was using this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, these headphones.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so how long is the session expected to go, Omar?
About an hour, but we can cut it short if you need.
No. Yeah, we'll play it by ear. How about that?
Okay, sounds good. I mean,
Sure,
just,
you know, the guys have things to do and all that.
I mean, just message me and I can always wrap it up earlier.
Yeah. How many people do you think are gonna be there?
I don't know. I mean, in the past, we've gotten very, very high attendance. I think maybe this time, because of Arab Heritage Month and exams, like 20 to 30, hopefully, but we're gonna record it and disseminate it. So
Sure.
I'm really not too sure.
Yeah. Okay, super. How you doing? Okay? Yeah. How you doing? Okay?
Yeah, I have an exam on Thursday, but you know how it is. It's just life.
I remember the exam intervals and preparation got to be so bad in medical school. We used to say we live from exam to exam.
That's how I feel.
And the sad part about it is that you stop learning the material that's coming your way because it interferes with you taking the exam. You know? Yeah, it's the exam culture versus the learning culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's how it's especially with like some of the prerequisites. But how's Munir doing? I heard some very exciting.
Yeah, Munir, I was just on the phone with him just briefly. You know, it's starting to prepare his move to St. Louis. He's like besides himself. You know?
That's awesome, Mabruk.
I'm so happy. Thank you, Habibi. Thank you. I tell you, I mean, we were all there, right? We were all there. I remember my times during the mats and my first mats. I didn't mats, and it turns out, you know, they wanted a diversity person, Black, and I got bumped. And yeah, it's just, but then, you know, things turn out the way they do, right? Then you do what you do with the best way what you have. Yeah. So, but Maria now is in La La Land, you know, because his year is finishing. He finishes courses. He really doesn't have any more coursework left. Now it's a matter of preparing what he needs to do to make the move and graduation preparation. And that's the best time.
That's what, yeah, I must say, it's like a weight off his shoulders, kind of.
Oh my God, totally. He's like posting on Instagram all these weights he's lifting.
Yeah. And
I'm going, you're going to be very short, man. You're compressing your spine with all this weight.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 second. I have
yeah.
It says I'm already registered. What is the link to the Zoom, or does it give me after? Sorry. Okay. Sorry, one of my board members is saying there's some kind of issue, but I'm just gonna double check.
Sure. I was able to log in.
Yeah. I don't see why there should be any problem.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're just gonna have to deal with it. I don't know, but I'm ready whenever you are to just launch.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay, you just tell me. You just tell me.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a minute or two, let everyone filter in. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to be waiting maybe 1 minute and we'll just get underway. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, let's see, we're recording. Okay, excellent. I think we're just going to go ahead and get started and make the most of the time with Dr. Abouljoud.
Let's do it.
So hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our NAAMA NextGen National Professional Development event. I'm Omar Fehmi. I have the honor of hosting the event. I'm a pre-medical student at U of M, and I'm serving on the National Board for NAAMA NextGen. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from Dr. Marwan Abouljoud on the topics of leadership in healthcare. So just as a rundown of the session, I'm going to give some introductory remarks about Dr. Abouljoud. We're going to go into some pre-fielded questions. We're going to open up the floor to audience questions, and then we're just going to have some concluding remarks. So Dr. Abouljoud, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I was putting together an introduction, and it was very overwhelming actually to write. You have over 66 pages of your CV, so I'm not going to do it justice. For everyone with us, please Google him, but I'm going to try my best. Dr. Abouljoud grew up in Lebanon. He graduated from the American University of Beirut Medical Center in Lebanon. He completed residency at Henry Ford and at U of M. His fellowship was done at Baylor University Medical Center and the University of Alabama. As I said earlier, there's no way I can cover everything Dr. Abouljoud has done throughout his career, but just some highlights are that he is the founding director of the Henry Ford Transplant Institute, and he's currently the Benson Ford Chair in Transplantation. He's the immediate past president of the American Society of Transplant Surgeons, and he's been awarded many recognitions in the Arab and Arab American community by AUB, by Axis, NAAMA, and was very involved in NAAMA, actually serving as the president of the Michigan chapter, serving on the national board, and chairing some of the international conferences. Beyond that, I mean, I could fill the whole hour with his accomplishments. So please,
you're very kind.
Google him if you haven't already. But Dr. Abouljoud, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you, Omar, for the invitation. Such a privilege to be here.
We're very excited to have you, and I guess we'll just get right into it.
Let's do it.
Start us off, you being in a leadership position and various leadership positions throughout your career. It seems that doctors traditionally spend most of their career taking care of patients. But over the past decade or two, it seems that more doctors are assuming leadership roles in their institutions and shaping the way that medicine is practiced. So what is the reason, in your opinion, for this shift?
Yeah, this is probably a complicated question that has many sides and versions to the answer. Probably the most simplistic answer would be that physicians and surgeons historically were very involved and interested in patient care. And patient care and the way we got compensated for it and the way it was structured, it was much easier to practice. There was no haggle and hassle, regulatory, financial, or otherwise. And over time and over the years, the reimbursement environment changed. The regulatory environment has become very complex. And also the rules and regulations are heavy. And doctors and physicians realized that the movement towards quality outcomes, efficiencies and effectiveness, and financial stewardship was all in the hands of the docs. They're on the front line. They're the ones who know how to impact the business, how to improve quality, instead of having an administrative partner being the one pushing for that. So it became an aha moment for medicine in general, for physicians and surgeons to move in the direction of managing quality, managing effectiveness, and managing even the financial enterprise many times to affect value-based, healthcare, if you will. So it was a natural transition, I should say.
And so looking at a lot of, doctors who are excelling in their field, we see them taking on these, heavy leadership positions. How do you think this impacts overall care? Is this beneficial? Is this, for every talented clinician, they should get into leadership? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm a little bit biased. I'm a surgeon, right? So if I am to say that if you find a physician who understands business and understands healthcare and understands quality care, you probably have the best healthcare leader you can find. And I think that's the trifecta. That aside, when you say, why physicians and surgeons are going into management, and is that any better? I think this question is loaded, but I do think that the future of healthcare is in the hand of physicians. And the reshaping of healthcare is in the hand of physicians. And I think the effectiveness of healthcare has been led astray because we were looking in the other direction. Some of it because we were getting paid too handsomely and too well. But we all love to practice medicine. And I think for many of us, like myself, when I go into management, is this a good thing? Not entirely. I think that you want leaders to be good in healthcare, but you cannot have the best physicians and the best surgeons who are the best at what they do, and then take them off the production line and say, I'm going to reward you by taking you off the production line. So I think there are some people who can calibrate this, where they view that contribution is greater and better in the healthcare environment and management space without dropping. Now, for me, as a physician leader, I devote half of my time to mentoring people. Yesterday, I was at Children's Hospital till 2 a.m. We were doing a split liver transplant. There were 2 surgeons, my younger people, but I've mentored them for the last 7 years. And I went there to tell them, I have your back. And I was sitting in the lounge doing my work. I would peek in every few moments. And when the liver was out, I was in the room with them. That's because I would refuse to have my business side of the enterprise take away from nurturing and developing the next generation of transplant surgeons in my program. That's what you were aiming at, that you have very good surgeons or physicians, and you put them in a leadership role, you create a void there. In every program, the best physicians want to be pushed to be leaders, and who fills their spot? Then we have the obligation to mentor and develop others. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think based off of your response, touching upon all the things you do, transplant surgeon, working administration, outgoing president of a professional society, a family man as well. How do you balance all these different things in your life, both professionally and personally? And do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, this is a very good point. I don't know if you can ever talk to a leader and say, have you done everything you always wanted to do and covered it to the level and the depth you wanted to do? And so you have to create priorities, So from the get-go, when I was pursuing transplant, I was very fortunate to have an amazing wife, Mary, who said, you know what? Before I chose transplant, I asked her, would you let me work those 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week? I would not accept that work unless she can do it for me. So there was an agreement in the family, but once you settle down, you have to choose what matters to you. And I think that's what we don't do enough in medicine as medical students and pre-med. You're going for the bachelor's, you're going for the grade, you're going for the MCAT, you will not stop ever going for something until you're 80. So you have to say, while I'm going for this MCAT and while I'm going for my MD, along the way, there are these 5 things that matter to me. I will not sacrifice my relationships. I will not sacrifice my mental and physical health. I will not sacrifice my personal growth where I do things. I will not sacrifice personal joy. Joy. What brings you joy? And then I will not sacrifice what I find meaningful and purposeful. Because at 20 and 30, it may be hard to understand that. But when the movie reel is played out and you're 70 and 75, you think, oh shit, that was not the movie that I wanted to play in. It was a different movie. Well, too bad. Nobody's hiring at 80 anymore. You know what I mean? So, so what I did was I used to do something every 3 years where I go on a vacation and go back and reflect. Am I living the life that I want? We're immigrants, right? We all left our homes, left our families. We asked our existential questions more than the average person. And I did. I came here, had $500, no job. So I had to ask myself the questions. Was I great at it every time? No. Sometimes transplant called me 7 days a week for 365 for 7 to 8 years. Then I said, you know what? I'm quitting transplant. I'm quitting transplant. I went to see you and I said, I'm quitting because I'm my family and my health. He says, what can I do for you not to quit? And we're going to become an institute and we're going to structure it in a way that we have enough staff and enough redundancy built in that we don't fry people. Then what happens, they will have joy in practice, joy in life, well-being, and it's sustainable over time. And so the top 5 faculty have been the same for the last 25 years. And so you have to define that for yourself. And so I do that. Every Christmas, at the end of the year, I do a mind map. This is what I did this year. What are my priorities this year? Do they align with my values? So when I get asked to do things and they're on top of each other, I say, does that align with my values and my interests? And if yes, do I have time? And if I don't have time, I give up something. So I was asked to chair a couple of big things last year, high profile. And I said, I'm sorry, I just don't have the time. This is because my free time now is with my kids and with my wife, and I travel a lot, catch up with my kids and all that. I define my priorities, and that's what I think everybody should do. And then you can change them. And then every now and then, maybe every 3 years or 5 years, one of those priorities come off, right? Because you've accomplished and you feel satisfied. You drank from that well. Let's go drink from another well now, so that you feel you're fulfilled. Because we don't get to do the show again. There are certain things, like let's say you want to be an acrobat part-time. Will you wait till you're 65 to be an acrobat part-time?
No.
Or to paragliding, or now medically and professionally, get an MBA. Will you get it when you're 65, 45? When is the right time for that? Only you can decide. Based on those values that you develop over time. And what I say once a year, what I do is called yearly reflection. It's called yearly reflection. And I devote a whole day for that. I go, do sports, come back, do my work. In the evening, have a glass of wine, go over this, ponder, let it sit. And then by Christmas, I look at it again. And it always has the same thing, and I move them. And when people say, how come you scheduled all this ahead of time? I say, yeah, because that's what I decided. These were my priorities. And they align with what I do. Exactly those 5 things that I mentioned. And I actually have a slide of it to remind myself. I put it on every slide and every talk, personal values and priorities.
Do you think that these personal values, is it almost like a balancing act with the other things you want to do, or maintaining this personal, values and priorities, they help make sure that, you're able to take care of, the professional aspects in your life? Or is it something else entirely?
That's interesting. I find the personal values and things as a roadmap. All of us, when you get so many things coming at you, it promotes this attention deficit. It's just too much coming at you. So I like to think in chunks, in aliquots. It makes it clearer for me. So when I print a mind map or design a mind map, and there is software for that, I used to do it by hand until I've discovered the software 10 years ago, is that I would branch it out. So that becomes really a roadmap. And then you modify it on the basis of your stage in life, because this is where career comes in. But again, remember, those personal values and priorities really fundamentally emanate from your inner core. And if you do not behave and act based on your inner core, you are bouncing like a hockey puck in life. in relationships, and in achieving professional accomplishments. You cannot ping pong. So if somebody tells me, I like to do research, then in that framework, they need to protect the time and develop the concept that this is the area they want to investigate and become an expert in that area. Versus I published 50 papers, each of which are about something very shallow and has no meaning on the trajectory of my career. So if you want to be an expert on professional development and leadership, develop programs, keep developing this, keep building this, keep putting a priority, and then you become the expert on developing leaders in 10 years, and then you evolve styles of leadership with the times. Now COVID, now you talk about COVID leadership and all that, so it becomes a path. And if you don't do that thinking ahead of time, you're going about it random, like the lottery.
I want to bring it to, I guess, planning for students, since we're talking a lot about priorities right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as pre-medical students, we have a limited amount of time. We all want to get into medical school. And, you know, there's certain things that we can do that are standard, working with patients, doing research. And I know this concept isn't super foreign.
You left out inventing the molecules and the nuclear atom and all these things. Yeah.
I want to ask you, because I know that you're a proud dad of a medical student now going to a very prestigious ortho residency. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you think are these extracurriculars that are, you know, worth students' time, or, you know, what do you think we should prioritize in this realm? What are your thoughts on this topic?
I tell you, I think that medical school is a tough time and is a formative time at the same time. You know, I think that it's unfortunate that we jam medical school with so much that people can barely raise their heads and take a deep breath and enjoy the moment. You know, some of my best friendships to this day continue to be from the friendships I made in my high school and in my medical school to this day. To this day, I mean, I can name some of them, you know, Munkar included, right? And so some of my friends who are in Florida, we make sure we meet once a year. So I think that in medical school, if you think about it, I have a lot to do. I have the simple things that I say: play hard and work hard. You cannot play hard alone, and you cannot work hard alone. You have to play hard and work hard. To me, is if somebody's in medical school works hard, it's because they got reserves, but they're not indefinite or infinite. You have to recharge, and recharging is what fills your cup. Now, I use the expression play hard, but the reality is it's what fills your cup. So I'll give you an idea of what I did when I was in medical school. I studied extremely hard, but I realized it took over my personal space. I graduated from IC valedictorian. I did very well in undergrad, but medical school was violating some very basic things, which were my physical health, because I was a runner, track and field, had my 800-meter record in high school. And then I needed my relationships. I mean, Lebanon went through a war. I had a brother that got injured. So I had to decide that I will have every evening 1 hour with my family. I was going to make tea for everyone, sit down with everyone. I was going to go out for a run at least every other day. And I was going to watch a movie once a week. And at 11 p.m., barring final exam, I had to watch Taxi and MASH. So these were my routines. So I just said to myself, I need that balance: health, mental, physical, family. So I managed it. Now, would that meant, could I have studied more? Yeah, of course I could have. Was that beneficial? Look what I am. It's not about really maximizing on everything you could do. You have to decide those ratios for yourself. So when my son Munir asked me when he went to medical school, he says, "You've been telling me a lot of things. Can you tell me just one thing that I'm driving to Columbus?" I told him, mental health. Never give up on your mental health and what violates that, which is your well-being and your relationships. And if you keep those up, they will power you to study harder, to challenge harder, to think clearer, and to reduce your anxiety, We all have anxiety in medical schools, right? And I told them, do not worry. It will be fine. Just graduate medical school and it will be fine. You know, and people don't realize that the CEOs of most organizations are not the top students in the class, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. They're the people who spend time reflecting and building this themselves and their portfolio and can see the difference between black and white. So when my son was preparing himself, I told him, you're gonna go get interviewed and they're gonna look at your grades, but that's gonna be 1 second. And the remaining 29 minutes are gonna be about what kind of person you are. Are you a normal human being who can have a conversation? Who can smile and crack laugh if it's funny? And then tell me what you've done that's meaningful. And I told my son, I told him, I don't want to check in the box for medical school. This is not about me volunteering and I check the box. It's about growing up as a man. And then realizing when you volunteer, you see the sorrow and the pain in other people and you pick up on something. And the hurt when you go in the hospital, volunteer in the oncology floor, these people are dying. They're not gonna have the life you're having. So what that means is, what do you pick up when you volunteer? Not the volunteering. It's growing as a person. So when you become a doc, you're human and you're humane and you're humanistic and you can make a difference around you. So when he was meeting with people, people were saying, Chad, you interviewed better than our staff interviews who are coming in as surgeons. And he told him, what do you think they said that for? He said, I think they felt I was mature. I thought, I'm not gonna say anything, I'm biased and I can poke at this. But it's about how you look at things and what you extract from things, you know? And that's why in medical school, enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it will show. You will not learn, you know, and keep yourself as one piece with relationships, because then you can absorb all these things and focus on learning, not scoring. You know, like the person who is now trying to fly a plane, do you think they're worried about the multiple choice exam as a pilot? Or not killing 300 people and dying while flying a plane? You are flying a small plane every day as a physician. So it's not a multiple choice exam. It's what would you do in a situation, an emergency, in an appendix, with a pneumonia, with a this, with a that, with a this, with a that. When you start thinking about this, it acquires this different dimension. Then you begin learning, understanding, comprehending, and you will never leave something until you got it. And when you got it, you pile it on, and the bricks pile on over time. And then when you look at it, it says, Chad, I was only doing 1 brick at a time. How did it become such a big skyscraper? That's what happens. Anyhow, long-winded answer.
And no, I think it gives a lot to think about. And just hearing your responses, it seems like, you know, ensuring you have your priorities, reflecting on what you want, maintaining your well-being and your mental health. It seems like these are, you know, are done through a deliberate effort. So, you know,
intentionality.
How do you maintain that intentionality without getting distracted? Is it like some sort of process that you have to instill, some sort of routine? Is this a skill that someone develops over time?
Yeah, that's a
maybe
good
too
question.
broad of a question. I'm sorry.
No, I tell you, I saw a diagram that I thought that my career was going to go like in the straight line. And then I thought it went this way, and I saw a convoluted noodle that is all twisted up. And that's because of the setbacks we go through. When you overdid something, often at times you don't realize you overdid it until you run in a wall. And then it hurts. So this is where I believe that, and I had to learn it the hard way a little bit, because I get so focused on something. And when I say I'm going to win, I'm winning. I take no prisoners. I was a racer. I know what it takes to win a race. But in life, you cannot think that way. Because winning is not about the race. Winning is about the balanced portfolio that brings the joy and happiness. And winning is not equated with joy and happiness. it couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, so because winning aligns with a goal, but happiness aligns with sense of purpose and connection, all that. So when you thought it, so your question was, when you're trying to target all this, and how do you prioritize it and how do you balance, right? Yeah. Well, my thinking is that when you go through your career, you have to develop a skill of reflecting, and some people call it emotional intelligence, and I spent a lot of time studying that, and the emotional intelligence space and things, and the leadership styles that come with that. And I realized that what I thought was self-awareness was not self-awareness. I was not as self-aware as I thought. I was not as situationally aware as I thought, until somebody told me like 25 years ago, God, Don, you're so obtuse. I said, shucks, I know math can be a good word. So developing a sense of self-awareness, relational awareness in the context you're in, and then having this connectivity with your relationships, you should be able to notice when you're off the tangent, when you're getting off track. And I urge people to take time off, and I've done, I went through a period of about 15 years where every year I went to an emotional intelligence training program by some of the leaders in the field, and also mindfulness training. And mindfulness and emotional intelligence combined help you calibrate yourself to stay on task with what you want to accomplish.
I'm just going to interrupt very briefly our conversation for our attendees. If you have any questions, please either use the Q&A functionality, put it in the chat. You can chat to everyone or just to the panelists. We want to make sure all your questions are answered.
You
I
bet.
have more than enough personal questions to ask Dr. Abouljoud, but you guys are definitely the priority. So any questions, please put Q&A or chat. I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier in terms of all of the mentorship you do. Many of us are going to be in a situation where we're going to be interviewing with someone. And there's many different factors that might go into this, but if you're interviewing one of us for whether it's a job or to get into medical school, what would you be looking for? So how would we get an interview?
I tell you, this is an important question. I think that the interview is one of those things where I say you have an opportunity to portray yourself in your true colors and your true self. And that's why part of our development as people, persons, medical students, whatever, is knowing your true self and your values and get them there. So in the interview, if you don't have a portfolio thing, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this and I've done that, you're really only left with your inner core and how you think and how you respond to all these things. So that's why I don't tell people, go blow steam with your stuff and the things you do. This should have already been done. The interview is the culmination of you presenting yourself in these brief moments for all the work you've done for those many years. So that's why I think number one that I tell candidates is be sincere and come across as a humane person who knows yourself and knows your values, and communicate with ease. Have your presence, have your eye contact with people, and understand where they're coming from and what they're asking you. Most of these questions are going to be asking about your values, your character, your personality, and even your sense of humor. Can you lighten up a little bit? How you connect with people? How do you make friends? How do you relate? So that's why I think the most important thing I tell people when you interview is be sincere, be conversational, be easygoing, be professional, and don't try to overplay things where you've accomplished all these things and blow steam with that, or you're like descendant from gods and their prophet line lineage and all this stuff. Be human, be real, be real. I need to feel that grit in you. Your actions will speak for themselves.
We have a somewhat related question in the audience, just talking about ourselves. It says, from Diana Hamoud from the University of Michigan, a lot of students have a hard time figuring out what their interests are, especially when so focused on school and the next goals. It's how society wires us. Do you have any tips for figuring out what our interests are?
Yeah, Diana, this is a good question. Gosh, good one. Good one. Uh, there are two ways to do that. One way is the exposure and the pull. You get pulled towards something. And most of the things that I've done were a pull. And meaning that I was going to be a plastic surgeon. I wanted to repair amputated arms and legs in Lebanon. Then I got exposed to liver and immunology and big techniques and surgery and reperfusion injury. It pulled me. So then that pedestal provides another door to something that pulls you, and you get pulled. Now, barring you going down the river and something pulls you, you can explore certain things. And what I tell people is speak to as many people as you can who are, good mentors or people who can speak to these things, and just talk about things and then go taste them. Taste the menu. Now, one of my kids, when he was exploring the same thing Diana asked him, I told him, take a notebook and for the next month, every day, write about 3 things that attracted you. There could be stupid things. There could be, oh my God, my teacher had a nice dress on. It was latest, or this car was beautiful. Or he did something that you hated, you could not do forever. So after about a month, he was going to be an engineer. I said, so Bashar, what you decided to do? I decided to go in line with things that I love in life. And I said, ooh, get prepared. So what are you going to do? He said, fashion design. He went from engineering to fashion design. And then through that deliberate journaling, he realized that throughout the time when he was a child, he loved fashion, loved designing, loved drawing, and loved constructing things along the lines of style. And, so he went, tasted it, went for a 3-week internship, and then bloomed, it blossomed. So that was a very deliberate effort. And I think Diana and others can definitely do that. And then speak to a mentor in parallel with this, and don't do it alone. And then you will find that thing to blossom. There are mechanisms to do that, by the way. Finding interest and stuff.
So I have a follow-up question to this. In terms of a lot of pre-medical students, a lot of people want to do the work of a physician, seeing what they do shadowing, but not every step of the way is, obviously the most fun when it comes to studying for all the exams or the MCAT. So how do we balance maybe the sense of things we feel we're obliged to do compared to our interests? Or is this in itself a flawed argument? What is your opinion on it?
Yeah. I tell you, I'm in a way an anarchist. Okay, I was always opposed to where we are taught. During my times, we're taught for the book, the exam, the multiple choice. It was not really teaching us medicine, and I still don't think we're doing it the right way. So I'm putting it all out there. We're not being taught the right way to get into medicine. Even in medicine, we're not taught medicine the best way possible. Now, that said, I don't think we're going to be able to change this in your lifetime. So I always tell my kids, people go hunting, and sometimes they spend a week until they get the one hunt that they want at the end of the trip, or not. Everything has a right of way, and there is a construct for it. And that's the construct of medicine. There are these things that need to be done, and you have to figure out how to enjoy them, accept them, or deal with them, focus on the things you like the most, and go faster with the things you don't like them that much. Because that's the construct. So you have some latitudes, but not too much. Now, is it right? I don't think it's entirely correct. I think the Europeans are doing better now, and they keep progressing more with entrusted professional activities and other educational frameworks that they're building. But like everything else, this is the right way, this is the path. You got to check 5 boxes to get to the 6th one. Turns out the 6th one is the one you wanted, but you had to do the first 5.
So it sounds like you have to do it as fast as you can.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that what I tried to develop, quite frankly, is the thing that I did not like. I tried to figure out how to study for them, to devote the least amount of time and to do the most efficient way to conduct the exam. So that's why part of my studying was, how do I manage my study efficiency and effectiveness? And how do I do exam taking effectively? So, what time of day, what time of hour, what day of the week, how much time to devote to each, how much time does it take me to read 1 page, 5 pages of the subject, And I had this table that would tell me if I had this much to prepare for, I knew exactly how many hours I needed to devote for it. 7 hours. So every day I'd come home and make an index card, fresh one, that included my study time, my break time, my dinner time, so that I don't sacrifice one for the other. So it's a method. I would never studied at random. Never studied at random.
Thank you, Dr. Abouljoud. I think we're going to move into some more technical questions.
Let's do it.
Students want your advice. I'm going to dismiss the question from Diana's. And then, okay, we have one from Noor Sulaiman. Dr. Abouljoud, I'm a current medical student that will be starting rotation soon. I'm curious to know if you had an aha moment that sent you in the direction of surgery, or if it was something you always felt you wanted to do. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. You know, everybody has a way of looking at things and thinking of things. I was always a technical person. I built furniture, carved wood, did a lot of things with my hands. And then at the same time, I loved the human contact. I mean, I loved the human contact. My secondary or secondary major was psychology. So behavioral psychology and all this. At a time when it was still budding, it was a new thing. And so to connect the two together, surgeon was the thing. Because if I didn't do something with my hands, I was going to go nuts. And you know what? The funny thing is, because of all the technical things that I did growing up and repairing things and building things, surgery was so natural for me. I mean, I would pick it up in an instant. And I do a very complex surgery and it feels very natural to me. So that's how I kind of arrived at it. And for those who have not had these kind of exposures, I say try it out. See what happens. See what happens. People will be surprised, but they have a natural inclination. Other people who did surgery like me played music, you know, trumpets and violins and pianos. They moved their fingers like nobody could.
And then we have another question from anonymous attendee. And again, please, put all your questions, guys. I still have a lot more questions as well. So yeah. This one says, I have been wondering about this a lot. How do you decide between MD, DO, ND, and other medical programs? Is there a specific distinguishing factor between wanting to follow the MD route compared to the other programs? And this is
where I come from, we didn't have that in Lebanon, right? I was an MD there. But when I came to the United States, I started understanding the DO aspect of things. And I would tell you that the MD path and the DO path were different. And historically, and this is not my own personal opinion, the MD programs typically had a little bit more rigor, in the way they were anchored in academic structures. And this has to do with the way they were grown and developed. So now they're merging more and more, okay? The 7-8 years ago, the president of my society was a DO surgeon. And he's the chief of the transplant center in Nebraska. Superb guy. My past fellow was a DO surgeon, and now he's a staff surgeon down in Florida. Superb surgeon. So I think that the DO is a pathway that some people prefer, or sometimes find themselves they have to. It does present some challenges to go into the top tier programs, but it doesn't mean you cannot do it. It requires that you elevate your academic profile to show the equivalence, if you will. I think that once you cross the first barrier, which is residency, it no longer matters. What matters is what you've accomplished. Like when I was an AUB guy, everybody would say, you're an AUB guy, foreign graduate. And then I went to Baylor. Oh, he's the Baylor guy, So I went to Henry Ford. Oh, he's the Ford guy. It's whatever you settle in becomes your label, and all that stuff disappears.
Thank you, Dr. Abouljoud. I have a question for you regarding NAAMA NextGen, actually. We're communities of Arab Americans and pre-health. And I know at one point you were very involved with NAAMA at the local level, nationally, internationally. We've left a very big impact. As a former NAAMA leader, how do you see the role of NextGen chapters evolving? And in your experience, what is the value proposition for being engaged in NAAMA NextGen? Yeah,
this is a good question. I tell you, I want to applaud you guys for NAAMA NextGen, and I know some of the people who started this program under whose leadership, and I truly admire them. And And Dr. Ruba Ali Fehmi was one of the innovators, most innovators in NAAMA, leading this, and she is a shining star in the NAAMA community. So I do think that we are first generation immigrants, and we adapted in a way that is a must do, must survive. But the world around us is changing in such a way that it's no longer just that. It is the next generation that is born and raised in the United States or abroad, or the fresh immigrants coming over from the Arab world. And NextGen helps bridge that and helps prepare people how to think, because the world around us is changing very fast. And not everybody can find good mentors to help them bridge that gap or be prepared for what the world is going to present to them. And I'm very proud to say that the Arab American community is a collection of amazing individuals with tremendous drive, purpose, and meaning and accomplishments. And it's loaded with people who are willing to mentor and help. NextGen is that bridge, and any bridge, anybody would understand that mentoring and advising and directing people for next generation to prepare those people for the future is probably one of the most precious activities one can do. And if you ask every senior physician, I say physician because we are, what would be one of the most important things you think we ought to be doing? They will say mentoring. They will say mentoring, because they want to pass on what they've learned and help people avoid the mistakes and the trappings they fell into. And so I think this is terrific. I would keep up that work and I would develop it further and maybe have more programs built in for people who want to jump in and pick up the learning. And of course, you have limited time, so it'll have to be in capsules.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Dr. Abouljoud, and we're very excited for the future of NextGen. We're going to be launching actually a pretty robust mentorship, like database program in about 3 weeks' time. So I'm very glad to see NextGen going. I want to ask you another question, just from a student perspective. We have a lot of student leaders in the audience. I recognize a lot of the names. What qualities or habits or routines do you suggest we work on to be strong and effective leaders? And what do you think are maybe some misconceptions about, what people believe leadership to be? I know it's kind of a big open-ended question.
Ooh, this is long. I tell you one thing. I think that that's my principle. I think people to lead should, before leading, sorry, I'm going to close the Q&A here. For people to lead first, they need to feel that they ought to feel like there is a pull towards service. You need to feel like you need to serve or want to serve. That should come first. If I say one quality of a leader is the willingness to serve, the wanting to serve. This is not a technical job. This is a job that is, how should I say, difficult to grab on, difficult to feel materially, to sense it, but you know it when you see it. You feel it when you're next to it. That's the willingness to serve and make a difference. And then you make the conscious choice to aspire to lead. So when somebody comes and tells me my career path, I want to be a chair. I say, why? They say, well, I've published so many, I got NIH grants, and I say, please move as far from me as you can. Because that's not what leadership is. It's about service. Now, you can start trickling down what are the qualities of a leader. Yeah, building teams, aspirational thinking, positivity, emotional intelligence. We can go through this for a whole hour or two. But you need to begin by doing that and then being able to, then we can go over the technical thing. That if you want to do a technical thing on leadership, I'll be happy to set up another session where let's just talk technical aspects of leadership. Then we can go into all the change management, business and engaging and communication, aspiration, positive thinking, and all these important things that we all should really have. Now, do you have them every day? No, because you have to pivot, right? Today was a day of sadness. Then we need to empathize. People lean on our shoulders, deal with the current circumstances. Then there is a time for recognition. Somebody does well. You know how to recognize them without bringing yourself into the I moment, into the them moment instead. Then there is a day where we're celebrating. How do you bring people together to celebrate for a common cause? People feel lost. How do you build a vision that they're already behind? Things change. There is a disaster behind us. We cannot pay people for another month. How can we bring people to rally around change and accept it? The short-term pain for the long-term gain. So how do you weather the storm? How do you see the future when the grass is greener, when you're going through a tornado? How do you bring people who are in conflict together to agree on certain things? That's all leadership, back together. But you gotta have it in your heart and you gotta like people. If you don't like people, you have no business leading people.
Definitely, yeah. So it seems like people-centric. Think of the people you're, working
Yeah, I mean,
with.
many people take leadership roles because they're control freaks. They just want to give orders, and they exist. Believe me, the world is not a perfect world we live in. So, and I see them all the time, and I just, just smile. I say, where did you come from?
How do you manage those types of characters that maybe they have a different view on what leadership is? It's not service-oriented, as you believe it should be, or is this too
Well, it
technical?
depends on the person, really. I mean, there are some people who mean well, and they reach out, and sometimes your behavior, your own conduct inspires other people to reach out to you. So that's why in my office, I have an espresso machine. I have tea, green tea, black tea, coffee of any kind, and pop and water. Why? Because I invite those people for coffee, and they say, I don't drink coffee, I have tea. So they come and we have a conversation. And the conversation is mostly about self-discovery. Then they come and tell me, you know what? It just, talking to you just gave me so many ideas. And I'm going like in my mind, it's like, yeah, because you had no clue what you were doing. Well, it turns out though, again, if you think of humanistically though, let's be fair. Very few people get trained in true leadership when they assume a leadership role. Somebody comes and says, John, this position got vacated. Can you do this for us? It entails these things. John comes and says, what do you have to do? It's like, oh, you'll figure it out. And then John gets 100 complaints in the first day. He has to deal with these people. First response he's got, oh my God, they're all a bunch of complainers. No, your job was to listen to them and see what their problems are. And then I help them address, either interpret, manage, or create change for them to have a better day. So he was not trained. He was not coached. So that's why training and coaching of leaders, first and foremost, is to be based on the human principles of leading. Some people call it soft leadership, but let me tell you, there's nothing soft about it, because this is where hardcore is built. You melt, then you freeze into the shape you want, but you have to thaw the ice first. You have to reach into people's hearts. These days, you cannot lead people without getting into their hearts, meaning that they have to feel when they come to work for you to work, they say, man, I love coming to work. Because they spend most of their waking hours at work. So how can they come work for you if they don't like you? You got to be liked. That doesn't mean that you are seeking, self-validation all the time. No, but you have to create that environment and the style of leadership that makes people aspire to work for you and the organization that you lead. That makes sense?
Makes sense. And I'm thinking in terms of any growing organization or one that, has lots of successive leaders, maybe NAAMA being an example, how do current leaders help, develop the future leaders? How does that occur?
Every society, every organization has developed a development or put together a development program along those lines. And the reality is medicine is a mentorship business. And if you look at the classic style of medicine, is people have mentors throughout their careers. And whether it is within the institution or outside the institution or through society and organized medicine. That's why when I advise my colleagues, I tell them, have somebody you can lean on and talk to in your organization And you can pick up on those people either because of, their values, how they act, how they lead, and how they make you feel when you're around them. Look at people outside of organized medicine and be involved. So I had people help me with the AFTS and the another organization, and then at Henry Ford, and you pick and choose what you want to get out of it. And a lot of it depends on you personally. That's kind of the way it's been my approach. And now at Henry Ford, when I was chairing the board of governors, one of the first things I noticed is that people are getting their MBAs, but they didn't know how to lead people. That's meaningless. This is meaningless. When you have people leaving your organization, all the talent is not there. You're going to MBA on what? Financing on what? On below average performance? So we started a program called the Physician Leadership Institute. It is a 10-month program built around all these emotional intelligence, influence, crucial conversations, journaling, and personal development, vision thinking, and all this stuff. And people are leaving. Now, more than half of the board of governors at Henry Ford is the PLI alumni. More than half of our leaders are PLI alums. And they say at the end of the program, they're transformed because they did MBAs and business degrees, but nobody talked about this stuff.
So you have a MMM, Master's in Medical Management for Physicians. This is a bit different than the typical MBA. At what point in your career did you feel, this is something you would like to pursue? And how do you think?
That's a debate there. I tell you, when I was applying for that, I had taken all the coursework, and basically half of the candidates for that MMM were done, or MBA equivalent. I asked my CEO, do I need to do that? He said, not to become a CEO. He said, your work is what proves whether you're a CEO quality or not. You don't need the letters. If you ask the recruiters, they say if you have the letters, it gives you an edge on getting a job if you want to be a CEO or CMO. Again, I don't think you need it for those jobs myself. Now, why I took it is because I was in succession, chair of the board of governors, felt there were things we needed to do for the medical practice. And then I was head of the Transplant Institute, felt there was some structural redesign things we needed to do. And then also became physician affairs director. Then was CMO for 3 years. So for 6 years, I was involved in physician leadership roles. I realized that with all the learning that I did, it was not enough. I needed to do more. So it's almost like I had an obligation. If I was going to lead, I needed to lead with modern principles of leadership and not be typecast in old-fashioned ways. This is how Jack did it, so that's how I'm going to do it. But that's how my intuition tells me to do. No. There is a lot that is out there we can learn, and then you can adapt it. You don't have to get recipes, Recipes for day one. The rest is your own work. Did that help? Now, if you get an MBA versus MMM, some of the recruiters may say it may make a difference. The difference between MBA and MMM is whatever additional finance you put in the MBA is replaced with quality management in the MMM. So it's very focused on people who want to become chief medical officers.
Thank you. This makes a lot of sense. I think just to be respectful of your time, we're just going to go through maybe 3 more questions.
Yalla.
So the first one is a Q&A question, and then the next 2 are going to be my own, unless someone is able to slip in a Q&A question, we have enough time. So Diana Hamoud has another question. She says, thank you for such an insightful response to my first question. I'm curious to hear your opinion on holistic approaches to medicine. So this is proper nutrition and physical activity. As a leader in the institution here in the US, given all the lobbying and monetary motives, do you think the medical field will ever move in this direction?
Yeah, this is a good question. Very thoughtful. I absolutely do think moving in that direction. If I interpret the question correctly, we're looking at the way we are advising people how to consume food, how to, what kind of foods, what types of food. I mean, even Henry Ford Hospital, to give you an idea, in West Bloomfield, they were feeding their patients organic food that they plant themselves. And I think that at the end of the day, personally, and I tell that to my patients, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. And so balanced diets, heavy alcohol, heavy fats, heavy this, heavy that, I'll see you in a few years because you need either your liver replaced or your heart bypassed or something. So definitely, absolutely with that. And physical activity, the same thing. So I was visiting some people in Salt Lake City and a couple of other centers. And actually, their institutions were promoting people to wear their iFit or something like that, whatever they call that. And so if you recorded X amount of activity per day, incrementally, you got discount on your health insurance. And they've proven, insurance, payers, that with you improving your own activity level and improving your nutrition, they save boatloads of money. They save a lot of money, and money drives decision. It's not about being hunky-dory and loving and caring. No, bottom line, health and nutrition and activity drive money, and the payers are going to be the ones driving that. I don't think it's going to be your hospital or your doctor. When I come and tell you, I'm going to save you $200 a month on your premium if you do this, would you do it or not? Most people would do it. Most people would do it. And so that's coming. That's coming. And how fast will it happen? I don't know, but CMS or Medicare is putting a lot of pressures on hospitals and physicians and stuff to save money in different ways. And some of it is preventative care. So I know how it's going to trickle down.
Okay, definitely very excited for the future. That'll be very cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, look at our country here. We're just all obese with cirrhosis and heart disease. I'm not talking about you. You're fine. You're fine. You're absolutely fine.
Okay, I think I'm not seeing any other additional questions, so I have two more, I guess, just to wrap us up. The first is, do you have any book recommendations for us?
Yeah. Books, this is a tricky space because you can have a whole library of books, but early in my reading and trying to develop myself and things, the two principles that I felt helped me the most, one of them was on emotional intelligence, and it was a book written by Goldman and Boyatsis, and it's called Primal Leadership. Primal Leadership. It's a little bit dense, but Primal Leadership, part of that book is on EI, but it focuses on the approach of how people lead primarily, meaning that through emotional intelligence and self-awareness and relational awareness. So Primal Leadership was one of my favorite books. Like I said, it's going to be dense a little bit, but there are some good stories. And then in the back, they summarize emotional intelligence and things. Boyatsis is one of the co-developers of EI with Dan Goldman. So Goldman. The second book that I'm not sure if it's a book particularly, there's a lot written on that, is Appreciative Inquiry. When I heard about it, like, another long word. Then I went to Case Western at Weatherhead and I spent 3 days there reflecting on this approach. And appreciative inquiry is to appreciate what is good and what is something that you're proud of in yourself or in your organization, and use that as the ground to build your vision for the future. So when people go have a strategic retreat, a lot of times what they say, what is this other competitor doing? What are we not doing well? And how are you going to build to the future based on developing that gap? Well, you already set yourself in a negative mode, and then maximize your performance on the competitor. Aspirational thinking, appreciative inquiry, says, knowing our amazing history as an organization, what are the successes that we have done? What are the great things we've designed? What are these things telling us about ourselves in principle? Outline these principles. And then you try from there, you put your aspirational goals, and then you bridge the gap based on your qualifications. Nowhere did you mention the competition. With this thinking, you will exceed the competition and make it irrelevant. And that's called appreciative inquiry. It was developed at Weathered School of Management at Case Western. And it's a big deal. There is a big program for that and all these things. And this is how you can use to develop vision and mission. So these are the two things. Now, appreciative inquiry books, they're loaded and they have a website actually where you can do things, and you can look into appreciative leadership, appreciative inquiry. There are very brief booklets on that. But once you develop the way of positive thinking and positivity, it will change how you think. Because when I talk to you, Omar, I'm going to try to think of what's good in you before I think what's bad in you. And once that conversation changes, my compliment to you will result in a compliment to me. And the circle of positivity is always an ascension for all. It raises the level of the dialogue versus being negative where nobody wants to talk to you because you always criticize. You don't see the good in other people. So that's appreciative inquiry.
Okay, I think I know what books I'm going to be reading after this. Thank you, Dr. Abouljoud.
Sure.
With that, I have one more question to wrap things up since we're approaching the end of the session. Just real quick.
What do you wish you knew before you went to medical school? There's a lot of questions.
I think I have one question. I think we'll hit all of them, but there is a nice message for you in the chat if you want to quickly read that.
Yeah. Yeah, what I wish I knew when I went to medical school is exactly what I told my son. Take no prisoners. I was a take no prisoners kind of guy. So I think if I balanced my life a little bit more, I think I would have been much happier. But I had a great time in school. I mean, I developed friendships that was good. So I think mental health and physical health, probably the balance between the two. And relationships. I'll be very honest with you. I did not maintain relationships very well, except the close ones. And my friends understood, but it's not the way I would have wanted it. Relationships, as like within Arabic, are like the isji, the saving bank. You cannot save $100 in 10 years all at once. You need to do 1 penny every day, so it becomes 100 with interest in all these years. What would you have done differently before residency? Really nothing. I did a year of research. It helped me get in, and I was a foreign graduate. That's the problem, and nobody wanted to interview me. I was not getting interviews. I didn't have a sponsor because I was new to the US and didn't have a sponsor. Which medical school did I go to? American University of Beirut.
I think one very last question for you, from me, Dr. Abouljoud. I'd like to ask all the panelists if there's perhaps maybe one piece of advice that you could give the audience you don't think you were able to cover, or maybe one piece of advice you would have given yourself when we were in your shoes. What do you think a simple message for us would be?
Yeah, there is so many things I wish I could say just from all my do's and don'ts, mostly don'ts. But now I'm 62. And I look back and I say, what would I have done differently? Is have the mindset and the attitude to make every day a freaking good day. All right? And you have the choice to do that. And if you have a friend next to you, you say, you know what? I feel like giving you a hug. You have another friend, you say, you can't imagine how much I love being with you and studying with you. And you're doing something else. I just love what we're doing today, guys. Just enjoy the day, make it a blast. And if you're not making a blast, you have to figure out what to do differently to do that and be in the moment. Do not be, because once you lose the sight of being in the moment, you will get the habit of speeding. And everything is in the rear view mirror. You no longer look forward. You'll look at things backwards. So live in the moment and make every day count and be present. Be present. Because the only thing you have control over is not the future that is not there, not is the past that's not here anymore, but your current time. And the most important person for you for that day in the moment is who? The one in front of you. That's the most important person for you. And the most important moment is that moment. Good enough?
More than enough. Thank you so much, Dr. Abouljoud, for joining us. I know myself, I'm very inspired by who you are and what you've done. And actually, the whole time through the webinar, a lot of people in the audience have been texting me their praise. So I think, thank you so much for, joining us today, for inspiring us and your service to society. For everyone in the audience, thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in attending future events, learning more about NAAMA NextGen, please check out our Instagram, which is at NAAMA_NextGen, or just shoot us an email at info@naamanextgen.com. Dr. Abouljoud, again, thank you so much. We'd love to have you
No,
again.
thank you. Thank you. I think you guys truly, you make us all so proud. I cannot be so much more proud of all the work you guys are doing and coming together and chatting and convening and being a community. So you support each other. I am tickled by all this. I'm just tickled. I wish I had something like that when I was at your stage of the game. So keep up the great work. Love what you do. Love each other. Love life. Make friends. Live life, my friend. Live it. Live it fully.
Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, last thing, medicine is one awesome thing to do. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
We'll make sure to keep it in mind. Thank you, Dr. Abouljoud.
All right. Have a nice evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Abouljoud. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.